This week's episode is actually one of those episodes that is definitely needed, and they did a fantastic job with it. Obviously, coming from the source material, it all makes sense and everything, but we get a few things here that aren't exactly explained, which will be further on explained, hopefully, with an OVA or just even in the series later on. But they do a very good job with this episode, and I'm very, very happy with it. And the way that they animated it was pretty damn excellent as well. So with that being said, let's delve into this episode, and then we'll talk more about it at the end here. So we start off with Rudeus in class, and he's immediately, not even like a few seconds into it, got his hand right up Linia's skirt, and she claws him right down and tells him, keep to himself, mind his own business. And of course, right around the corner, you got Persena eating some freaking meat and kind of judging the whole situation. They're just fighting away, and it's absolutely hilarious. And while those two are arguing, we've got our not necessarily hated, but orny little guy Cliff over there telling him to calm down because he can't even think to himself. And it's pretty great. And so of course the cat girls, mostly as you would expect, Rinia is getting kind of pissed off with her foot on top of the desk, but Rudeus calms it all down, and he's like, okay, sorry, didn't mean to disturb you, because for the most part, Rudeus isn't trying to make enemies. He's just trying to figure out what the man god told him and get the heck out of there. So after that, they kind of leave class, and they're later on in the day, and Cliff sees somebody out the window, which we know who it is, and I guess he kind of does too. But it's our girl Elenice, and he's just kind of fawning over her, and within like a frame or two difference, Rudeus is walking down the hallways minding his own business and sees somebody just getting the crap beat out of him by a group of 6 people. Like, they're just curb stomping the living crap out of him. And so Rudeus comes up, and he's gonna break this up, because that's what Rudeus does, because he knows what it's like to be bullied by a whole gang of people. And so he's trying to break it up, and they ask who it is at first, and then they realize that it's Rudeus or Quagmire, and they decide to leave, especially after the Rudeus is like, is it really cool for 6 people to pick on one person? And you know what's totally true and fair. But right after that, they leave, because obviously they don't want to take on Rudeus, because Rudeus is, he's got a name around the campus, and everything worked where he was doing everything with the groups he was in. So Cliff gets up, and immediately he's about ready to tell Rudeus that he didn't need help, but realizes that, oh, well, I guess I did need help, and you helped me quite a bit there, so thank you. But Rudeus is questioning why, obviously Cliff hates him in the first place even, and I mean, more or less, we got it in the Heiress OVA with the fact, how she's bragging about Rudeus to him, and even after he had a little crush on, Heiress. So obviously, that's why he hates Rudeus in the short terms there. But the next day in class, Cliff asks Rudeus for a favor and brings him out to the hallway, or not the hallway necessarily, more the corridor outside, and asks if he can get some love advice. And he's like, yeah, from this chick over there. And of course, Rudeus at first is, thinking to himself, hopefully he doesn't ask me to ask them out for him or anything like that, because Rudeus, realistically doesn't have very good love advice, period. But Cliff points to the girl, and of course, as I said earlier, it's Elenice, and she's in the window, just kind of steadily looking out at the sunset, and Cliff is very serious about this. He even grabs Rudeus's collar and looks him in the eyes and tells us that the reason that he got into that whole fight in the first place the other night is because all the girls there, or all the guys there, said that she'd spend the night with any boy in the school. And of course, Rudeus is like, oh no, well, they weren't wrong, but still, that's like no reason to beat the shit out of somebody and everything, So Rudeus gets back into school and he's talking to Sylphie about, all this stuff. He tells her about asking about crushes and stuff. And of course she freaks out at first and like alerts the whole dang library. Like everybody in there just like peaks up in interest after she yells this out loud. But then she asks, if Rudeus has a crush on anybody, and he tells her, no, I don't have a crush on anybody, but somebody that I know where Cliff wants help with Elenice, and she, asks how he feels about her, and he tells her, I don't have anything against her, but I'd never date her. Of course, Sylphie tells, him that, she likes somebody herself, and so she knows how he feels. And even Rudeus is like, I wonder who it is, I bet you it's the queen, not even knowing realistically that it's himself. But the idea is that, even Sylphie's like, maybe after you introduce them to each other, they'll figure it out themselves, because that's how things work and problems and everything. So, Rudeus agrees to Cliff to take him to Elenice and go from there. So he brings him to the room, and, Elenice is surprised, because Rudeus doesn't normally stop by that often. And he introduces her to Cliff. And within, 2 seconds tells him he tells her that he wants her to consider being in a personal relationship. So instantly, she takes Rudeus and grabs him, throws him in the corner with her, and she's like, how much money is this? How much you getting paid? And Rudeus is like, I'm not pimping anybody out here. This is for free. Just wanted to meet you. And, she feels really bad about it because, he's just a gullible boy, and she doesn't want him to, fall in love with him, knowing all of these things. But she reminds him of the curse, to be fair. And you can tell even in her eyes, she wants to fall in love, but it's just so many factors to it and everything. So, but Rudeus pretty much tells her, let's give him a shot, listen to him talk, and then go on from there. And within 2 seconds, she tells Rudeus that he shouldn't spy on other people's love lives, and just kind of walks himself out. And this is where the episode starts to get interesting. And there's I shit you not, I didn't even count how many there were, but there's a ton of frames this episode of animals getting ready to make love, and it is just still frames, nothing like people or anything, just animals. And I think I saved one that I'll focus on later, but it's just absolutely hilarious. So Cliff and Elenice are in the class, and they're next to each other, very lovey-dovey like an early high school couple would be, and Rudeus is just shocked, just surprised, just shocked to find out that these two have become a couple. And she's going to do her best to control herself for Cliff, while Cliff is pretty much stating as well that he's going to lift her curse. And I won't delve into that because that's more of a spoiler than anything. So later in the series, hopefully as long as Bine is able to adapt everything, we'll get to that. So from there on out, Rudeus is even talking to himself about how he wish he could get cured himself so he can make out with somebody. And we get this kind of not necessarily fast forward, but a little bit of a fast forward, where we find out that the Beastman and women are fighting in duels right now because it's mating season for them, more or less, if you the picture. So they leave Rudeus a note telling him that they're going to be gone, but the note also said the rest is up to you, and Rudeus doesn't really know what that's about at the moment, but he's going to find out really quick. And before I get into this section here, we get ourselves a little, I don't say cameo, but a visual at first of a character that we aren't going to necessarily see for a little bit unless they actually do the rumored OVA this winter, and that's Nina Ferion, and she's this daughter of another sword god who's Gal, and pretty much Eris's rival, and she's a pretty neat character, but unless necessarily they, like I said, do the OVA, which I really hope they do, because it'd be really awesome if they did that between cores, but we won't know much about it right now. Just a little fan thing and all that stuff, but she doesn't do much. She's just kind of there, and she kind of leaves, and we get this mail that challenges Rudeus right off the bat, right? Rudeus tells him, sorry, but I'm straight, and, you know, I know this is for mating and stuff, but he apparently wrote Persona, and she told him that he's the boss of the pack. So this is what, you know, obviously they meant the rest is up to him. It's just going to be a gruesome, long, freaking event of things. And while that's going on, Nina kind of just sneaks away around the corner, not even a word said. And Rudeus beats this guy in like 2 seconds. You don't get to see the fight, but it's over very quick. So we go back to the library, and Sylphie's, you know, like, she can't believe what's going on outside and asking Rudeus what he did. And he explains the whole thing to her, you know, about how they all want to marry Lena and Persona, and that's just a whole line. You get to see this line, right? It's just wrapping around the building, and it's drawing so much attention. And Rudeus is like, and then Sylphie's even like, you know, it's not all men, you know, even though he's just bitching and moaning about it. But he's like, she's like, there's one girl out there. And so Rudeus is like, oh, you know, I wonder if she's cute, huh? And of course, Sylphie gets this just look of, oh, is that how you feel? And for once, we get to see, like, the glasses aren't dark tinted, they're lightly tinted in the sunlight, and you get to see her whole face for this just disappointment of a shot. But she even goes in the mental state and says, I guess that's just how you are, you know, Paul and everything. So after that, she kind of just storms out of the building, and Rudeus goes to follow her, and Sylphie stopped in her foot tracks, and Rudeus is like, what's going on? Because everybody there is just wiped out on the floor. Nobody is awake or anything. There's no line anymore. And we get to see finally, in the flesh, the one and only Badigadi, the Demon King. And he's got this other guy in his hand, throws him to the side, and recognizes Rudeus from the bat. Because obviously he has the eye of foresight from his wife and wants to challenge him because his wife spoke of him. You know, Kishiraka. So he introduces himself, and he's looking obviously jacked. He's a character to be reckoned with. Later on in this series, he's got a lot of things that he's important. We'll just go with that. We'll go with that. And so he challenges Rudeus to a fight, obviously, because that's what he came here for, and that's what he knocked everybody out for. And somebody said that to get to Rudeus, he had to get through them, so obviously he went through all of them. And so he sends Sylphie to go get his staff for him, and, you know, he's kind of commenting on how usually humans are hasty and really want to rush this shit and get it done with. But he's like, you know, I just want to get my staff. And he tells him about, you know, her bestowing the eye to him, and that she hadn't even spoken about somebody so high with excitement in a long time. And so they kind of get on their knees and they're talking, you know, and explain to Rudeus that he might have, like, the greatest mana capacity in the whole world. That, you know, he's gonna be a worthy opponent, and he doesn't, not that Rudeus doubts himself as much anymore, but at the same time he knows what's gonna happen in his past, and brings up, you know, maybe he doesn't want to get into another thing, especially with Orsted, which comes up here in a minute. But he asks this guy if he knows anything about the man god, and he gets this face instantly where it looks like he knows exactly what he's talking about. And he asks him where he learned that name. And he says, you know, I just, in my dreams and everything like that, you know. And of course, Badigadi says, you know, nothing at all. But Sylphie brings the staff. And now we can fight. And right before then, Sylphie's obviously clearly worried about Rudeus and tells him, you know, be careful, I don't want you to die. Which is understandable, even if she wasn't who she is, and, you know, wants him to be in her life forever. Still makes sense, you know. You don't want somebody just going recklessly dying, especially in a school battle. And so Rudeus makes, you know, the declaration that he wants to, you know, make sure, you know, no matter what, nobody's gonna die. And so he's like, you know, even for somebody with all your mana, you don't believe in your own strength. And so he obviously brings up the fact that, you know, two years ago, Orsted nearly killed him. And he makes this face, just, And of course, Rudeus is like second guessing it. Like, maybe I should have brought that up with him just because I assumed that the man god was a safe word. Doesn't mean Orsted necessarily was. Because obviously Orsted's more of a physical being. You know, he's there. And so he makes a not necessarily a, what's the word I'm looking for? A compromise, yes. And so he goes, you strike me once with your mightiest blow, and if you wound me, you win. If not, he wins. How does that sound? So Rudeus agrees, and he stands back, and he's getting ready to pack the exact same spell that he used on Orsted. However, back then, he likes to point out even that it was one-handed, because obviously the other one was broken, and he was panicking, because, well... Obviously, Eris and our boy Richard himself were both not in the greatest shape at the moment, and he was younger. So from there on, he's starting to craft this spike, right? And he's making it hard and spinning it fast and making it long. It sounds terrible, but he is, and it is orange hot on top of it. So he gets ready to send it, and he just sends it, right? And Badigadi goes flying across, and there's smoke everywhere, and it looks so freaking good. And so he thinks that he's dead at first, because he's just laying on the ground, no movement whatsoever, and the whole crowd's looking at it. And I'd say maybe not even like 10-15 seconds later, the whole crowd makes, this gasping astonishment to find out that he's like shrunk to the size of like, I don't know, it's really hard to say, but I'd say about a couple feet tall, like maybe 1-2 feet tall. But right after that, his arms crawl back to him, and he grows right back up to normal size, and obviously declares Rudeus the winner, because if not, that could have really, freaking killed him. And coincidentally, as sore of a loser as he is, he grabs Rudeus's arm with one of his 6 arms, and says, "Declare your win." And he tells him, I'm the winner. And right after that, he just grips his arm really tight and socks him right in the face. And we get back to Rudeus' bedroom, and Rudeus has got a big puffy cheek, and Sylphie's healing it and tells him just to kind of relax for the day. You've had a long day, which he definitely has between the duels and Badigadi. It's just been a long day. This is where the mistake happens, though, the fact that Rudeus, assumes that he'll never see him ever again. But we'll get to that in a second. So we get back to class, and our favorite cat girls are there. Well, one's not necessarily a cat, but technically speaking. Well, anyways, our beast girls. We'll go with beast girls. We get back, and obviously not the tournament, but the breeding era is done. He's beaten all of them, and they never expected him, you never expected the Demon King to show up. But, right away, obviously Persena offers Lena's boobies as a reward for Rudeus, because they're always just popping out anyways. So Rudeus goes for a nice little feel, and Lena's, she's just not quite into that as usual. And it scares the piss out of her, and she claws Rudeus' face, like right across his eyeballs, and Persena's is in the background, smiling and freaking greedy with her bag of meat over there. And within 10 seconds, Badigadi's now got a school uniform on, and Rudeus is just obviously not into that. And that's pretty much the end of the episode. So as much as he wanted him gone, he's there. Yes, like I said, this episode was really good. We got, a character I didn't think we'd get this early. Oh, not this early necessarily. Just in the way they showed it with Nina. I'm really excited and hoping for that OVA, another Eris OVA during the gap. We got Badigadi was a BA. I know some people were disappointed by his skin tone, even though the light novel / manga covers and the animation or cover arts have shown him that color. I know he's technically like an obsidian black in the source material, so I kind of get the confusion. And then we got Cliff and Ellen Cliff and his love. Why am I butchering every time, man? Frickin' Elenice. And with the whole curse, and that'll be another thing that come into fruition later. We got a lot of things that got set up and a lot of answers that got answered, and a little bit of lewdness, and it was all around a good time, So with that made me happy. That made me happy. Very overall solid. Got 4 episodes left this core. It's going to be fantastic. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It means a lot to me. And if you're feeling generous, hit the subscribe button. I do, 2 reviews every week. And then I've been doing my podcast every Friday. And then I also attempt to do, I haven't done them in a little bit. So I haven't had much time, but I try to cover something that I just want to cover. And with that being all said and done, this has been Squids. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.